state building.
New York's number one hit music station. It's Z100. I'm Josh Martinez, and I have the privilege and the honor to have in studio right now owner, CEO, president, head booker. I mean, what titles am I missing? Mr. Tony Khan. What's going on, man?
Hey, thank you so much for having me, Josh.
Nah, it's all love. When I got the email yesterday last minute, I said, you know what? I'm the night jock. I didn't get home till like 1 a.m. I got to turn around and be here. I'll be here for this.
This is awesome. Well, I appreciate you making the time.
And listen, it's a big week for you guys, Friday and Saturday, right? Because we have two big events happening in Miami this Friday and this Saturday. Tell us about it.
Well, AEW, we've got a very special AEW Rampage. We're live Friday night in Miami at the James L. Knight Center. And we're doing a big weekend of AEW Friday night and Saturday night on TNT, Rampage Friday, Dynamite Saturday. We have huge loaded cards, some of the biggest stars in wrestling in big matches. Going to be really excellent stuff. And I know you, Josh, are a big fan of the bell-to-bell wrestling, the great classics, and I think we're going to have a chance to have a couple classics on TNT this weekend.
And we're going to see CM Punk's going to be in action. Bryan Danielson's going to be in action this weekend. So it's a lot of fun. All the info. You guys do a great job on the social media front. So whoever your social media team is, they deserve some kudos. So everybody just search AEW Wrestling. It pops right up. All Elite Wrestling, whether it's Twitter, Instagram, it pops right up. But I just kind of want to get into things. You celebrated a birthday the other day.
I did.
Happy belated birthday.
Thank you.
Did you do anything fun and exciting?
Well, no. I mean, I love all the work I do, so every day is fun and exciting for me. So yes, I did, but it was no different from what I do every other day. So
we just had another birthday, 2-year anniversary of AEW Dynamite every Wednesday on TNT, and it was a big show. It was a fun show. Now I have a couple questions that I have here, and I want to just kind of jump in and discuss how certain signings impacted the company, because I think that's a big deal. And
right.
I'll just name 4. How did Chris Jericho signing kind of set the tone for everything for you guys?
What a great one to start out with, and really that was how we started this company out. I knew from the beginning we needed a huge box office signature star, and Chris was one of the biggest stars in wrestling, and he still had so much to offer. He had gone to New Japan Pro Wrestling and gone to the Tokyo Dome, and I'd seen him move the business needle internationally for New Japan. And really, I thought that was only a fraction of what was possible in America, and I think that's proven to be true. I saw Chris Jericho and Kenny Omega have a match that drew a lot of business, and I knew that if they came to AEW and we did a pay-per-view and that was the main event, I knew it could be a huge draw. And I really wanted to get Chris and Kenny and the Young Bucks and really so many of the guys from the Bullet Club, Cody Rhodes, Hangman Page, and now Adam Cole is with us, which we may get to in a second. But we've built up this great roster of talent, and Chris was a huge focal point. And without Chris signing, I don't know if this all would have been possible. He's a huge part of the founding of AEW.
And I think one of the interesting things is that once, in my opinion, and I could be very wrong on this, but once the ball kind of started rolling and things were getting exciting, pandemic happened. COVID occurred. We had a few debuts that had to happen at Daly's Place in Jacksonville, and you guys worked around it. And in my opinion, I thought you guys did the best job of all the companies on the planet during the pandemic, and that's just me being honest, including you guys had a special Dynamite event where Sting debuted. And I will never forget, that's one of those moments where I will never forget. It was snowing in Jacksonville, and I happened to be lifting in my living room because the gyms were closed. And I'm like, why is it snowing in Jacksonville? And then Sting, of all people, comes out. I literally said out loud, oh shit, right? And my girlfriend woke up. She was not happy, but I was very happy. What was the impact of Sting coming in? Because that was
huge business movement. We've had a few signings that came in and we saw immediate impact on our ratings and all the business metrics, and Sting was one of them. So we did a special event called Winter is Coming, built around the special event debut, what's it going to be? And, of course, big moment was Sting walked into Daly's Place, and the crowd went nuts. And, we had the crowds. One of the things that set AEW apart during the pandemic was having the fans there. And, you'd appreciate this. I know, like you were saying, the gyms were closed, so you had to lift in your living room, and the movie theaters were closed. And a lot of people would go to the movies and the drive-in movies, and the go outdoor seating is really the only way you could go see a movie. So that's what I tried to turn our outdoor amphitheater, Daly's Place, into, is like a drive-in movie theater. So each section was like you could bring your family or friends, and you had your own section of seating. And then that way, it's like a safe bubble for each family or friend group. And we had no known transmissions the whole year we were doing it.
Wow.
Because it's outdoor shows. There's not 99% less risk out there. So everyone was, in their own pod areas, and we were able to do the shows, and it was the only place in America you could go see a wrestling show live on a big stage and see the stars, see the big matches, pay-per-views, TV shows, but it was also the only place you could watch on TV and see live fans. So there were over 1,000 fans there. There were about 1,200 fans for Sting's debut. And also, that was when Kenny Omega won the world title, the world champion. That's where the title change happened. There have only been a couple title changes in the history of AEW. You asked about Jericho, and then, of course, Moxley won it at Revolution. We were on fire, and 2 weeks later, the pandemic hit.
The fire went out very quickly. But
we were able to actually keep our ratings through the pandemic. Like you said, I mean, it wasn't like we were able to double, triple business because you're in a pandemic with no fans, but we were actually able to maintain and then rise our ratings through the pandemic so that when the fans came back, we shot up again, and then somebody you're probably about to ask me about came in, and then our business shot up again.
Well, I was going to get to that. Great segue. It's like you've done this once or twice. Finally, the fans come back. I think sometimes the most obvious thing is still the best thing, right? And you guys made it obvious enough. It was enough wink, wink, nudge, nudge that CM Punk was coming in. Because why else would you have the second Rampage show at a massive arena rather than the first? It didn't make much business sense. But if you were a wrestling fan, you knew what was going to happen. I was in that studio next door watching it on my iPad to make sure that I was part of it. How did that impact things, CM Punk signing?
Thank you for watching. You're part of a huge audience that watched The First Dance. And The First Dance, it has totally changed our business, the arrival of CM Punk. Him coming in has lifted at least 6 different business metrics and all the big ones. And it's really great what he's done for us in terms of our TV ratings, our live events, our pay-per-view numbers, which have hit a record high. And we've never done merchandising like this. It's amazing. And it's really awesome to have him. But also his debut match was a great match against Darby Allin. And that event, The First Dance, like you said, it was kind of wink, wink, nudge, nudge. The idea that Punk and I had sat down together, we came up with. He wanted to have his debut be a surprise. I wanted to get all of the business out of it. So how do we do both? And we came up with this great idea, which is make it the world's worst kept secret. And that was, we sat down together, and I had this language for Darby, and nobody knew what Darby was going to say in his promo, but me and Punk, and then I gave Darby this line, which was, you want to anybody could come to AEW, and that's where you prove you're the best.
Best in the world.
I'm sorry, prove you're the greatest, even if you think you're the best in the world. And that line, it totally woke up a lot of people. It got a huge pop in the arena. People couldn't believe it, and that's when everyone really knew.
And to me, I think the best part of that line, and I think this is an understated part, the moment that line was hit, all 3 men in the shot stopped and just stared at the camera, and there was just silence for 2 to 3 seconds. And it's those little details and those little nuggets that are like, oh, okay, it's happening now. There's no, and this is going to sound really bad, but depending on how long you've been watching wrestling and how many times you've been let down by other companies or other storylines, right? Because you've been a fan all your life, so you've booked, right? Before you were, in high school, you booked probably in your mind, and maybe you psych yourself up so much for something, and then it doesn't happen, and then you realize, oh, it was never going to happen. I just wanted it to happen so bad. So I genuinely thought when that music hit that MJF was going to walk out because there's heat, right? And he's the biggest heat seeker right now. And I had the opportunity to talk to him recently, and we brought up the term cheap heat. And he was very emphatic about, that's just a made-up term. My job is to basically go out there and make you pay to see me get my ass kicked. And he hasn't yet, so kudos to him. He's doing something well. But back to the business side of things, Bryan Danielson, another kept secret, kind of not. If you're on social media, you knew it was kind of happening, maybe not. But when was it going to happen? Was it going to happen in Queens? Was it going to happen at the pay-per-view event? How has he impacted things so far?
He's been another huge lift to our business. I think a lot of people, in addition to the debut of CM Punk in AEW, his first match at All Out, we set business records for this pay-per-view, and people really loved it. I mean, the best part was it's the most pay-per-views we've ever sold, and it was the best response any wrestling pay-per-view's gotten in years. And Bryan Danielson's debut was the cherry on top moment. Of course, we haven't talked much. I referenced Adam Cole before, but really CM Punk's first match, and then this moment at the end where Adam Cole Cole arrives. We reform the Elite. We form this new Super Elite. These four are back together for the first time in years. Kenny Omega, the Young Bucks, now with Adam Cole standing tall. Well, I thought it would be perfect just then when people thought that was it to have Bryan Danielson come in and then set these battle lines and put Bryan Danielson on the opposite side and build up to the Bryan Danielson-Kenny Omega match we've, of course, had at Grand Slam. That you were there, and we talked about it before we went on the air. It was just a great match. And, this weekend, they're both going to be wrestling. You're going to get to see CM Punk wrestling against Matt Sydal on Friday night on Rampage live on TNT. That's a huge, huge match. And two of the best bell-to-bell wrestlers in a match with two guys that haven't been in the ring against each other in a long time. And really, they've never had these kind of freedoms before, to go out and have this kind of match, because I'm not going to put restrictions on them. I'm not going to give them a really short time limit or tell them they can only have 5 minutes on television. This is going to be unleashed, and we'll see what, how long it goes. We'll see how great a match it is, but I have a really good feeling about Friday Night Live, Punk versus Sydal, and then Saturday night, Bryan Danielson versus Bobby Fish.
I'm excited about that one because Bobby Fish, part of the Adam Cole stable on NXT, and we could just say it, I don't care, whatever, on NXT, and then all of a sudden, he's back on AEW, or he's on AEW, and all of a sudden we're getting these matches that we all kind of hoped, hey, maybe during this time of year when there's cross brands, that maybe this could happen. So now we can actually see more kind of dream matches or what if matches, and we're getting it for free Saturday night with Bryan Danielson and Bobby Fish.
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody with TNT, and I encourage everybody, a lot of people have cable. You might watch on apps. There's the TNT app. You can watch TNT on Hulu, YouTube TV, and of course, cable, satellite, but also for everybody worldwide, what I'm going to do, and I've not told anybody this until now, Josh, for Friday night, you know how we have the buy-in for pay-per-views?
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to do a buy-in for a free TV show. So you buy in to something free, so it's a free buy-in this time. So it's a buy-in Friday night live before Rampage. I'm going to put an hour live special building up 9 p.m. Eastern, going into the 10 p.m. Rampage, and I'm going to put a real fun card together. And one thing I'll promise you is Bryan Danielson and Bobby Fish will both have great matches on Friday night, and they're both going to have to get through a tough test before they get in the ring with each other on Saturday night.
Ooh, I like that tease.
So,
I dig it.
Digging them both, and they're both going to have a fun match on Friday night ahead of what I think will be a great match, Danielson and Fish on Saturday. But I'm also so excited for Friday night with Punk and Sydal, and I'd really be remiss if I didn't talk about Jorge Masvidal coming in the corner of Dos Santos and Scorpio Sky and Ethan Page and
Man
Dan
of the
Lambert.
Year against the Inner Circle. Now, how did the whole Dan Lambert thing come about? Because my man was there, did a promo and two, and now all of a sudden he is the lead mic guy on a top angle.
The way it happened is, and I've never told the whole story before, is about a year and a half, really a few months before the pandemic, at the beginning of 2020, I had dinner with Masvidal in Miami, and we just talked business. We had a great talk. And then they told me Dan's, American Top Team, Dan Lambert, have you heard of him? I was like, yeah, from Impact. He was Bobby Lashley's manager in Impact. He did a really nice job. And they said he's a huge fan in real life. And that's the deal. He's like the biggest wrestling fan. I was like, oh, really? He's pretty good. Good personality. I'd love to meet him sometime. And they were like, would you want to meet him right now? I was like, yeah, have him come over and hang out. So he came over to where we're having dinner. Fastest friends ever. I became really tight with Dan, and he lived in Florida. And then through the pandemic, we have a very small bubble of people. And then we would have everybody who came to the shows at first before we let the fans in the outdoor seated bubble away from the wrestlers. With like distancing and stuff. At first, it was really just a very small group of people. So Dan came in and took the COVID test and was with us in the bubble for a while. And at one point, he brought a belt collection to show just for the historians, because he has the world's greatest wrestling belt collection, and just brought a few cool things. He has like Buddy Rogers' belt. And like all this cool stuff.
You would never guess that as someone who's, big time, American Top Team is arguably the biggest MMA group faction gym in the world.
And his favorite stuff outside of, like we have these common interests because Dan loves wrestling and football so much. Oh, okay. And he's a big Miami football guy and also the world's biggest wrestling fan. So Dan, he became friends with me, and then UFC was doing their bubble in Jacksonville too. And we were basically like set up almost, peripheral bubbles, and that's how Dana and I really became good friends, because he was set up right across the street from me in his bubble, and we were in Daly's place, and they were across the parking lot in the arena. So Dana became good friends with me, and I brought him to meet my dad, and I just love him. And I really, that's Dan and I became friends, and then he's such a good talker and he cares so much about wrestling. And that's where I had the idea. Scorpio Sky's got the MMA background, and the team I put together, that really the men of the year. Originally, I wanted foils for Sting and Darby, but they had such great chemistry. I really thought that there's a long-term potential with Scorpio Sky and Ethan Page. So Scorpio Sky, an MMA fighter with a good record, and Ethan Page, a double black belt, which a lot of people don't think of originally when they think of Ethan Page as a guy with 2 black belts in karate and taekwondo. Mm-hmm. So I thought they would be really cool training in American Top Team with Dan to build up as badasses. And then Dan getting to live his dream as a wrestling manager is pretty cool, but he's just great at it. And then, they got more and more heat. And that's when I talked to Chris. And Chris and Dan, really could play off each other, and there'd be something really special here. Now it's gotten even stronger. Inner Circle's in a great position. Look how over Chris is as a babyface. Jake Hager is a legit MMA fighter, getting to work against other MMA fighters with Junior Dos Santos on Friday night across the ring, with Masvidal being out there. And now Sammy Guevara is the TNT champion. So it's an exciting time.
I'm very excited to see how these UFC fighters translate into the professional wrestling ring. I think, and that's the thing. That's the exciting part about being a wrestling fan, is that at all times things are evolving, things are changing, right? Growing up, I know you were a huge fan. Were you kind of I guess the best word is like a closeted type fan, or were you like outward in school wearing the shirts like, yo, you guys should have seen Raw last night?
Super outward, and it was a good time to be like outward, because like I got cooler and as wrestling got more popular, because when I got to this new school in 1996, and I've talked about it a little bit before because I had an experience at ECW. My father, Vince McMahon never went to the ECW arena, but Shad Khan did, and I did. When I got into the University of Illinois Laboratory High School, my parents, basically, I didn't want to go there, and go away from my friends, because this is like the top academic school, but it's very small. There's only 56 kids in my graduating class. And you had to take exams to get in and qualify to get in, but then there's no tuition. It's a public school, but you had to qualify. And so I got in the 99.9th percentile in the SSAT, and then
slight flex.
Yeah, it was. And then so it was like, what do you? They basically bribed me to go to the school I didn't want to go to. So it was like, we'll do one thing. What do you want to do? And I wanted to go to ECW for this weekend. It was Chris Jericho's last weekend in the company.
Yeah.
And so his Friday night loop in the Lulu Temple was Sabu and Jericho. And then Saturday night was Sabu versus Rob Van Dam in a stretcher match, and Jericho versus Too Cold Scorpio in his last match. And which is a classic. And so we were there, and there's photos of the event and stuff. And it's a really, really cool memory now that Chris and I share. But I'm there in a Taz shirt, and I used to wear my Taz shirt, this orange Taz shirt, everywhere. And people knew me as like the Taz guy in high school. So, and then nobody really watched wrestling, and nobody even knew who that was at first when he was in ECW in 96. But then wrestling got cooler and cooler as I was in high school. By 98, wrestling was hot, and people would come up and ask me like, hey, who is that thing last night? Like, why were they fighting, or why were they mad at each other? And then every week people would start asking me wrestling questions, and everyone was into it by 99, 2000. So I was there. I graduated in 2001, and by the time I graduated, like, there were tons of people watching wrestling.
I love that, because that's how I've always been an outward fan, and even through when the Attitude Era, if you will, kind of came down a little bit, I was still out there. To the point where a lot of people have come to me similar to like you just said, like with questions about wrestling, or, on social media, I get tagged on things like, oh, look at this meme or whatever. And it's always kind of a slight against wrestling, but I just take it in stride. I mean, I have an Ultimate Warrior tattoo. Like I'm a huge fan. The character's great. The guy's a dick.
The other Blade Runner, I'm much more a fan of the other Blade Runner.
I wonder what happened to that other Blade Runner.
Blade Runner Sting is the man. I got to say, he's just one of the greatest people.
So, Sting was brought in. Obviously, he was paired up with Darby Allin to set Darby Allin up and go to kind of a...
You know what's crazy? I was building up Darby before I even knew Sting was available. Darby was being built up as a top star, and I had Darby up in the rafters, like almost like the next iteration, the next generation of Sting, really an homage to Sting. And Sting didn't know this, and he hadn't been watching really wrestling, and we talked, and he's so... now look, almost a year later, he's had these matches. He's so into it. He works his ass off, and he's such a great person. And so when he first talked to me, I said, there's a young kid, please look at him, because I think you'd be so great together, and it would be such a great pairing. And now in real life, they're such close friends, and they're such a big part of each other's life. They have so much in common. They're both these like straight edge, great-hearted people who do like all this great work, charitable stuff for kids, and then like neither of them really has neither of them does drugs, drink, nothing, and like they're both like completely straight edge, and they're both like just so cool and have so much in common, but they had never met, and bringing them together and now seeing what it's become to like people around the world. It's one of my favorite things about wrestling. So
you mentioned that you guys were setting up Darby Allin. I'd like to put you on the spot a little bit, and then we're going to jump into a this or that game that I like to do on my show. Who, in your opinion, if you had to put the chips on the table right now, who do you see headlining All Out 2025? Championship match, who's headlining? If you All Out 2025. The year 2025, not like the 25th edition. In 4 years, who do you see headlining?
What a great question. I think there's a lot of people it could be. You know, there's so many great stars in AEW right now. The champions are Kenny Omega and Britt Baker, and I think they could be the champions for a long time. Kenny and Britt, they're both great champs, and they both had great runs already. And I'm not ready to say anybody's going to beat either of them anytime soon. So you could easily have either the champions, Kenny or Britt. And I think that would be a great answer, and either of them could be defending the title. And we have a lot of great new challengers. I mean, of course, Bryan Danielson, CM Punk, and now the top contender is Hangman Page. And I think Hangman Page's return in the Casino Ladder match was a huge part of the anniversary show. We did a huge rating for that Casino Ladder match. And I really believe there's a ton of interest in him, and he's going to be a great challenger. That's going to be a great match, Kenny versus Hangman for the title. And who knows? It could be either one of them, and it could be Darby Allin, who you just talked about. Britt Baker's such a great champion, and there's a lot of exciting things happening in AEW's women's division. You know, last week, Serena Deeb and Shida had a classic match, and there have been other women's wrestling matches on TV this week, but my understanding is that Shida versus Serena was longer than all of them combined.
That is a fact, my friend. Twitter will tell you that very quickly. So we'll jump into this or that. So I'm going to name two things, and you just got to tell me this. Just pick one, and you don't have to get into detail as to why. But I have one question first on the this or that. Who's most likely to win a title first? Is it Fulham FC? Am I pronouncing it right? Fulham?
Yeah.
Fulham? All right. I'm from Brooklyn. I don't know these UK names. Fulham FC or the Jags?
Right now, Fulham, I think we have a good chance. I mean, we're a few points off the top in the championship, and I would love to win the championship and go back to the Premier League. We've been promoted twice in the last several years. I'm the general manager of the club, and so it's a little different than with the Jaguars. I'm the head of analytics. My family owns both clubs, but I work both places, and I love working at the Jaguars and working with everyone there. It's a little different at Fulham, and I have a lot of responsibility there working alongside with our head coach and running the transactions and the transfers. And so anyway, I think right now maybe in terms of Fulham has a better record. So I think Fulham.
So we're just going to do this or that. I'm just going to name two random things, pick one or the other. You do not have to give me reasons why. You ready?
Yeah.
Rock or Austin?
Austin.
Bagels or pizza?
Pizza.
Jay-Z or Biggie?
Biggie.
Doctor of Thugonomics or Platinum Max?
Platinum Max.
NSYNC or Backstreet Boys?
Backstreet Boys.
God, you lost a point with me. Meltzer or Alvarez?
Well, it's like I like both, but Dave.
All right. Nick or Matt Jackson?
Oh, I can't choose between those. That's a tie.
Revolution tag match between the Young Bucks and Omega Hangman, or all-out cage match, Lucha Brothers Young Bucks?
That also, I'm going to stipulate, okay, is a pure wrestling match. The Revolution match cannot be beat, but if there was one thing I was going to take to a desert island or one thing I would show to a non-wrestling fan and say, like, watch this, it would probably be the all-out cage match because what a spectacle.
Which looks better, the TNT title or the TBS title?
Probably right now the TBS title's newer, so it's probably fresher.
So the TBS title, there's a reason why you guys are moving to TBS in 2022, right?
Yes, well, not both shows. No, Dynamite.
Yeah.
Dynamite. Both shows are on TNT right now, and this weekend both shows are on TNT. Friday night Rampage and Saturday night Dynamite, and Wednesday night Dynamite, of course, the number one show on cable 6 straight weeks, going into last week, on 6 straight Wednesdays, and going back to Wednesday in 2 weeks after the sports time shifts. But anyway, I digress. That we will be moving Dynamite to TBS, but Rampage is staying on TNT.
Love that. On a scale of 1 to Shockmaster, what was your immediate reaction to the final explosion in the barbed wire death match?
I was really upset. We had rehearsed, different, make sure that the explosions went off, and then it was working great all match, and then I was upset because we used non-wrestling people to do a wrestling thing, but we did it for safety's sake. But I don't think that what they did or what they were doing was any safer than what we would have done. And I think that they were safe, but we could have done it safely and had people that understood wrestling doing it. But we had like bonded licensed guys, and then they didn't. Like it was like the guys who actually worked with the pyrotechnics. Now I will say that they admitted fault, and I was like $90,000 for this stuff, and I ended up getting the $90,000 back. But that didn't mean that I was not really upset with them. So
I want to go out on a high note. Owen Hart Foundation, All Elite Wrestling has teamed up with them. How did you guys get to that? And then I'll have a follow-up question on that, because I think that's a tremendous thing.
Thank you for asking. So during the pandemic, one thing being, stuck at home, I spent a lot of time building relationships with people all over the world. And Chris Jericho is a big relationship builder too, and he spent a lot of time building relationships, and he had built this really good relationship with Martha Hart. And they had gotten to know each other, and he introduced me to her and said that, he thought it would be great if we worked together to honor Owen somehow. And I had this idea for an Owen Hart Cup, and I want to have, how there's in movies, they have the Oscars, and in TV, the Emmys and so forth. So I thought it'd be really cool if there was the Owen in wrestling, and that would be a trophy that everybody could win. So I'm very excited to talk more about the Owen soon. So there's going to be, without revealing all the details, the Owen will be a very important trophy in wrestling.
My final question I wanted to ask, the Owen, do we know when it's going to start?
I can't say when it's going to start. Okay. I mean, right now I've tunnel vision for this weekend, and then building into full gear in next month on pay-per-view, November 13th. We've got a great show planned for that. And also, it's going to be a great crowd. I mean, we're going to in Minneapolis at the Target Center, tracking potential sellout here, and huge building again. And so we've got great crowds for AEW, great support. And this weekend, I think you'll get a great look at what AEW is all about on Friday Night Rampage and Saturday Night Dynamite.
One last time, Tony Khan, thank you so much. Appreciate you, bro.
Thank you for having me. It was really nice to meet you. I always enjoy talking to wrestling fans, so this was like a pleasure out of my day.
From the top of the Empire State Building.